All right, you people, it's Gigi No Re. This week it's a little bit different. Here's my preface. We do have a tiny bit of actual play for you. I mean, that's what the show was started on. That's what our roots are in. However, these past couple of months have been a little weird for us. We've been up and down. We've been doing things we haven't done before. It's been unpredictable. We're going to get back to regularity here pretty soon. But instead of playing in our normal game this week, we had an off week. Well, that's nothing. We got two games a month instead of four. And so normally in our off week, we release a panel episode. We didn't have a panel episode prepped for this week, but not to fear, my dear listener, because we had a special event that means that I ran a game on Friday, this past Friday. However, it was not with our usual crew. It was with part of our usual crew and then some newbies. So it was John and Mason playing, and I think four other guys, like college-age kiddos, some of whom I think one or two had played before, but none had played a lot, and a couple had never played at all. So it was a new experience for us. Got some new blood in there finally. And I learned about this not quite a week before I would need to run it. And I decided, John just said, hey, do you want to run a game for some people? And I said, okay. And I decided, let's give them the pure 5e treatment. Let's not put my weird rules in there. Well, not too many of them anyway. Let's not restrict their classes and races and all that stuff. Let's just let them choose whatever spells they want. We're going to give them the introduction to completely standard mainstream D&D. However, I wanted to make it a challenge run for myself, which would be to not throw them into an already existing campaign with a lot of accumulated lore and events in game. Instead, I wanted to put them in a kind of vanilla 5e setting, but I wanted to generate it all from scratch. How are you going to do that and have content to play in less than a week? Well, we have lots of resources that are available to the aspiring or practiced or long in the tooth GM these days. And you do definitely need to check out the show notes for this episode. That would be ggnorecast.com/161. The show notes page is always linked in the episode notes on your podcast reader. So make sure to go check that out because I put a link to all the stuff I used. So every tool that I use to make the world map, the regional map, city maps, all the dungeon maps. I made a trailer for the campaign that has music and all this stuff. It's kind of cheesy, but even the music I didn't make myself. I used this program that's linked in the show notes to automatically generate the music. It's pretty wild. Now, I also took the resultant artifacts. I ran this completely analog, which is different than I normally do. I had a bunch of notes in an Evernote file, and I kept on adding to it throughout the week. And then the day before it was time to run it, I transferred those notes into 3 separate Word doc templates. One for the dungeon, one for the wilderness, and one for the town. And those documents are linked in a Google Drive folder that I've made public or unlisted or something. And there's a link to it there. So you can download everything that I used to run the game. Now, there are a few things, like there's going to be some inconsistencies in perhaps NPC names and that kind of stuff. There might be 1 or 2 of the layers that aren't keyed, although they all have maps. And usually, a layer is small enough that it's not too hard to improvise when you're stocking that thing. Put monsters in some rooms and nothing in other rooms and traps in other rooms, and you're done. But the overall setting and what's the main conflict, that was all just created in the week before the game. And I have a few things that were tools to get the players into the game, like starting in media res and introducing a couple procedures, I suppose, that are DM facing to get players to think about their characters in a dramatic sense. Because when people create characters, at least these days, these whippersnappers, and I'm sure back in the day, probably even more so back in the day, their character to them is not a protagonist. Their character is an avatar. So it's like they're making a video game character rather than dreaming up some fictional character that would be in, say, a book they were writing, but that they didn't have full authorial control over, that's kind of the model that I prefer. But again, people aren't going to do that. That requires a lot of thought and skills that people don't have or don't care to cultivate. So it's on you, the tireless DM, to come up with ways that aren't drudgery to get this to happen and that are quick. And I also wanted to generate some bonds between the characters, between the PCs. And so the intro bit, I don't think it's actually on this AP segment. Sad. but you get a little bit of it. This AP segment is only like 10 to 15 minutes because we were recording out of pocket, and I had a Chromebook, so it sounded like a real computer, and I didn't have time to see what kind of recording stuff was available to hook up my mic to. So instead, I just Googled around and found a cloud service that you can record to, Soundtrap, and it worked great for our first track, but then the rest were lost. I don't know whose fault that was, but it just didn't work out. So we only have the intro bit, the very starting bit of our game, but it's probably for the best. So one, we were in a larger area, so the sound wasn't going to be as good anyway. Two, we didn't have our mics, we just had the old mic. And three, yours truly forgot to turn the mic setting back to Omni mode, so it sounds like we're in a cave that's underwater. That's why I'm putting that part at the end, so if you just want to hear about what this episode represents, you can have heard it. Yep, heard it. That's not a word. You can hear it now. You could have heard it already, and then decide to dip out of the episode if you find it not edifying for your purposes. After the stuff you hear about, we did the introduction of the loot goals, which is a D12 list, and we showed how to fictionally reveal something. This is a technique that you can use in all your games, and I use in all my games, but most people haven't done it before. It's a bit of an authorial stance that people may not be used to, so I showed them how to do that, and then we did the same thing for bonds. Everybody selects one, and then one person is the guinea pig that gets to reveal the bond they have with another person in the moment. I started them in the middle of one of the early overworld dungeons, one of the layers. There's not a lot of loot there, and I mean, it was fine, but if I were doing it again, I would not do that because they got immediately into old school dungeon crawling, especially after this heavily dramatic introduction. And I think the dissonance there was not something that is to be encouraged, especially not for newbies who don't know how this whole thing works. Like, if there's not a lot of loot in a place, old school gamers know, okay, that's just the way it is. So we need to go somewhere else, like go deeper, go to a different dungeon. But it's hard to really communicate that and have people believe it, I think, for people who are not used to this style of game. So I shouldn't have put them there. I should have put them in the actual dungeon, like where there's 4 levels of stuff to go mess around with. Or I should have started them in town at the tavern. I mean, that's not high action, but at least it's classic. You know what I'm saying? And I have 12 rumors, and any of them they could have followed up on and done whatever with. But again, that's analysis paralysis as well. You don't want to have 6 people deciding on what to do. Lessons learned. If I had to do it over again, I would have made sure all my stuff was stocked, and then also started either at the dungeon, probably just actually in the dungeon, or at the entrance to the dungeon. And you know what? I've got no excuse. There's no excuse for me, because in Moldvay Basic 1981, it says just start them at the start of the dungeon. Why didn't I do that? I don't know. I'm trying to be too fancy. I'm trying to innovate. That's not what we want. We don't want cleverness. We just want following the great and grand tradition. That's what I should have done. Well, lessons learned. I've repented of my sins. Do check out the show notes page, ggnorecast.com/161, and look at least the Google Drive folder with all the artifacts that are there. You can see, I put the PDFs of all the books. Just print them in booklet form on your printer, and then it should arrange the pages correctly. Then you just staple them together. There you go. I did do an alternate cover on the dungeon booklet, so make sure to check out those pictures. Oh, so this was also a practical experiment in doing what I talked about in a previous episode, which was not freaking out about making a perfect dungeon or a perfect wilderness or whatever, but rather to make sure that there's playable content first. Later, you can go back and revise this stuff. So that's what I'm intending on doing. Those documents that I've linked in the Google Drive folder on the show notes page are the alpha. That's what I actually use to run the game. I'm intending to go back and revise those because I believe we will continue this campaign later, either with our normal group or with the new people or with a mixture of the two. And I'm going to replace random dungeons with handcrafted dungeons, fill out the setting in other ways, make the books prettier. My patrons, if you are interested in being a patron of our humble podcast, it's patreon.com/ggnoree, and you can get access to my revisions that I make. And when the whole thing is ready, you'll already have it. I might publish it on DriveThruRPG, who knows? But you'll already have it because you're smart and you're a patron. And you also get into our Discord. It's fun times. And there's a bunch of other random stuff. You can just go check it out. I should have at least text descriptions of what's up there and available. And with that, I suppose I will transition into this lovely audio. I hope you find it enjoyable, and if not, feel free to dip. We'll be back next week, probably with Dungeon Academy, finishing up where we left off right in the middle of the dungeon there. Or we'll do Kurland, Kurland, I think Kurland is how I'm pronouncing it. And that was randomly generated as well. I didn't make up the name of the kingdom. Or we will get back to CCQ or something else like that. Maybe finish up our Clerics in the Vineyard game. Anything's possible. The future is a limitless horizon. So keep your ears peeled and your eyes tuned. It's GG No Re. I'm Daniel. This is a little different. I don't even know if it's going to go out on the mainstream. We'll see. We are playing with a new group. We have 1.5 regulars. Mason Rip is no longer a regular because of IRL concerns, but he's back for this one. We're playing with about half the people that have not played before, and they're all youngsters. They're not even millennials. They're Zoomers. They're so young. We had to change the diapers earlier. And also, we're off-site. We're not in Tim's basement anymore, so we can't use our fancy recording equipment. That means we have to use the old busted mic. So yeah. So it's just in the corner, right next to me. And so if the audio is garbage, that's why. Okay. So you're gonna have to deal with it, or just cut it off right now, and never listen again, and unsubscribe. Unlike.
Cease and desist.
Yeah, you got to. So that's it. We're gonna ignore the mic for the rest of the time. Okay? We're just gonna pretend like it's not there. What we're gonna do tonight is a little bit of a challenge run for yours truly. I wanted to, in a few days, I think it was like 3 or 4 days, come up with a completely new setting and run a standard vanilla 5e game that's suitable for beginners, but not something that would be boring and linear. So that's what this is. A lot of it was randomly generated and then modified. Some of it was original. I intend to put it up for your general consumption. I don't know how yet, but it'll be something you can download and print off. That's what's up. We're not gonna do introductions because who cares about that? We're just gonna start into the game. Listen, because I know you guys are just wanting that content. You're thirsty. You're crawling on your hands and knees to this parched ground of the internet looking for content. That's what we have tonight. Okay, we're gonna start with just rolling initiative. One reason we're doing this is that I want to show you how rolling initiative works. Another reason is that I need a volunteer or a scapegoat or a guinea pig for the first bit of the game. And whoever wins will be that person, or will be able to delegate that person.
I see.
So that's how that works. An initiative check is how you usually start combat. It's an ability check, which means you roll a d20 and then add the relevant ability score modifier to it. It's the plus or the minus. So everybody roll a d20 and add your dexterity modifier to it. And then call out what you get, and remember if nobody gets lower than you.
29. I think I win.
No,
Okay.
it's your modifier.
Yeah, the modifier, not the whole score.
So it's gonna be that's plus 0.
So that's plus 2 for you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be plus 1. That's
For every
that's a minus 1.
every even number above 10 adds 1 plus 1.
Yep.
10.
You have to remind me of that like 15 times.
Well, you can write it right there. So 15 is plus 2.
Okay.
Roll tide. The tide is rolled. That's fine. Roll tide. All right, who has the highest? Or if you don't...
I rolled a 20.
Okay, you about to get higher than 20? No, John, you're not eligible.
I was gonna delegate.
Okay, you delegate then.
All right, I'm gonna delegate to let's say Tanner.
Nice.
All right, so Tanner, what's your character's name?
What? Apparently it's Tanner, so.
That's your last name. That's your last name.
Here, do this.
You can use that as a character name. It's in world, man.
That's your last
How do
name.
you say that?
Take it first.
Just put an H in there somewhere.
I gotta put
Silent.
him on the spot. What's your first name?
I'm gonna go with FOMO. There we go.
Thomo.
That's
Don't.
what I accidentally called Thanos.
Oh.
Thomo.
You know what we need to do? And you know what, folks, listeners, excuse me, the listener, the one person who listens, we're not going to edit any of this out. You're just going to have to endure all the You hear that? It's just going to happen. This is real time. This is real life. Everybody, I'm handing you an index card. what I want you to do
This is mowing safe. We can mow the lawn on this.
is fold it in half, and then on like long ways, like this,
Lines up and lines down.
lines where you can't see them.
Landscape or portrait?
We call that hand.
Do the portrait fold. Portrait fold.
Portrait fold.
And then on one side, I want you to write your character's name as big as you possibly can. And also, it's going to stand up like this. It's going to stand up so other people can see it, and I can see it. And that way we don't have name tags. This is not Tim's basement where we have actual name tags.
Do you?
Yes, but we just don't need them because
Oh, I see.
we're all still inbred in our group. We don't have any new DNA that ever comes in there. So we know, oh, it's your mama, your daddy. It's easy.
Uncle, nephew.
Yeah. So that way we can call it, the practice I would like us to be in is to refer to each other by our characters' names, and that way the listener only has to remember one set of names, and then also you guys remember each other's character names.
And we get immersed.
There you go, immersed. You're going to be crying. You're going to be running away when there's a fear spell. Feel free to draw your character's portrait on the other side. You don't have to do that. It's just if you want me to like you, then you'll do it. But just do what you want to do. Ideally, it's on the front side, but I didn't tell you that, so you can't be held responsible. What I require, you also have the ability to do. I'm not God. And if you want this put up on the corresponding blog post, if it ever goes up to the internet, then just DM me or DM John, and he'll pass it along. So, FOMO. Are we going to be able to keep that name, or are we going to just giggle every time?
Perfect. It's so
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Thomo Tanner.
I'm not exactly sure why that is so funny to me.
That was a tight name.
Fiercest oxygen deprived warrior. He's always purple.
Was this an actual inside joke from real life?
He just mispronounced Thanos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, after Infinity War, I was trying to recap it and I accidentally said FOMO.
Oh, that makes sense. Now, probably what's going to happen is that after like an hour, this recording is going to stop because we're recording in the cloud. Oh, I know what to do. When we take a break, we'll just stop the recording and do a new track. That's smart. That's
Innovative.
See?
It's big brain. It's big brain energy.
It's on the fly. And since we're not editing this, you know how shoddy this contraption.
It's going to be terrible. This is going to be the worst. Looking forward to it. Look at that. Beautiful.
He added nipple hair, but not chest hair.
He's got an
He didn't have
8-pack.
chest hair. He just had nipple hair. He was burned.
Is that an arm or a nipple hair? Okay. I still don't know. What is that?
That's nipple hair. That's the arm.
That's the arm. Okay.
Okay. Can you tell us how to say that and how to read it?
Wycraz the Loam. It's my name spelled backwards with accent marks.
Wow, beautiful. I mean, that's how George R.R. Martin did it.
Your name is Zarky?
Delone. Yikraz.
That's spelled wrong? Yeah, I spelled it wrong.
That's okay.
Good. Keep it.
Just blame your mom.
John spelled it wrong on the very thing. Did I? Sorry. There's two A's, not one.
You didn't even catch it. I spelled it wrong and you just wrote it out the same way.
Just copied it.
He's just doing what he's told. All right. We've got all the names. It's great. I hold in my hands a piece of paper. Ignore this side. We're going to pick, my objective, and this is so hard for me. John and Mason will attest to this. I'm trying not to change anything. So you get pure, unadulterated
Wait,
5th edition
I'm
D&D.
playing cleric. I want light.
Yeah, there's something about that. There's magical darkness in the underworld, so don't worry about that. I do want to make sure that each one of your characters has a reason to want a decent amount of money quickly, so that you all have a reason, no matter what's going on, to want to adventure together. Because, you're gonna be a farmer? you're gonna like raise a sheep in your house or something? No. Listen, you need money. You're gonna be born into the nobility?
Agriculture's going nowhere.
No, it's going nowhere. Listen, that's the past. What you want to do is go into a hole in the ground with monsters in it and get like a few coins real quick, and then don't do it ever again. But you may have bigger ambitions than that. So I want on your character sheet somewhere is there a place, it's probably on the flip side of your first page, for goals? Is there a goals place somewhere? I believe the official character sheets have that. That's not that.
Serious?
I think it's on that page.
Ideals, personality traits, bonds, flaws.
Maybe on the third page.
I got this stuff already.
No, there's no goal spot. It's just ideals and bonds and
Okay,
traits.
in that case,
Additional notes.
put it under
There's a blank spot on the bottom left. There's nothing.
Yeah, big spot.
on the bottom left. Oh, that's probably for your portrait. But that's a perfect space to put goals. These are things, concrete things that you want to do. Right on the left-hand column, this is like an important thing. It's the only one of its kind you will have. Loot goal, colon. And then you can roll a d12 or pick one. I'll read them out because there's a lot of people here, and this is very small print.
Should I just use I have a different sheet. Should I just use the character backstory one? It's
No,
the same, okay.
I mean, I don't care where it is as long as you know where it
Just
is.
use other
Yeah.
blank spot.
And if you have a different goal in mind, feel free. It's just you need a decent amount of money pretty reasonably quickly. Some of them not super quick, but you get it. And it doesn't matter how much money. We'll figure that out later. So one, and a lot of the, don't worry. Start a mercenary band so you can hire yourself out to a king to get nobility, i.e. the Berserk storyline. Anyone seen Berserk? Read Berserk? Okay.
No.
God, you're so young.
No.
All right. Get a castle on the marches, i.e. an old castle that's all busted down that maybe you can go and take over and build back up and get a title to it from the king, right? It's on the edge, but you need money to do that. It's kind of a long-term, most of these are long-term goals. Build a temple. And as soon as I say something you like, write it down. And if you get to the end and you don't like anything, that's fine.
That's what this is for.
Build a temple. So that's a clerical kind of thing. Endow, that means get enough seed money so the investments pay for the regular maintenance, right? An orphanage. Endow a hospital.
Doesn't sound like one
Ooh,
person.
wait a second. That was close to my goal, the orphanage thing. I wanted to rebuild my family fortune to support my orphan siblings.
That you can just write that down.
Okay.
Build a tower, like a wizard tower, so you can do your wizard experiments, and also have like flex on the other wizards who don't have towers. Start a guild, i.e. like a thieves guild or a fighters guild, if you played Morrowind or something like that. Ransom a relative who's in debtor's prison or is captured by bandits or barbarians or monsters, and they need money. Pay debt, either your own or your family's. YOLO, you're just out there to have fun and drink. You need money, and you need to buy a lot of stuff and like have gold belts. I knew you normies were gonna pick
You
YOLO.
need to pick the option where you need enough power to be, you need enough money to become a position of power where you can delegate like the balance of your town, where you can weed out the weak and keep the strong.
I'm just gonna approach it like a sandwich.
I got two more. Get into wizard school, and then the last one, get into the thieves guild. You have to buy your way in, and you're not good enough to steal your way in yet. So those are the options, and if you haven't picked one that you like, let me know, and we'll workshop it. You just need to know for your own benefit.
You do
What was option 2?
get a castle.
Castle.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is the default option historically.
That's what I was looking for you. I was looking at that for you.
In 1974, when original D&D came out, at 9th level, fighters got castles, clerics got like a theocracy castle that you ruled, rogues got to be in charge of a thieves guild, and wizards got their wizard's tower. So that's where I get the inspiration for this. Anyway, so now you know why you all would need money and can sign up to adventure together.
Towers are good.
That's fine. Okay, now this can, it can't go away yet. It's time to actually play Dungeons and Dragons. But we will take a quick break, and I'm gonna save this little intro bit and see, I've never saved a track on this before. This is, what is this? Soundtrap.com. I'm probably hacked now. I'm pwned.
Major Trojan.